Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They don't fail because the world is unfair. They fail because somewhere deep inside their mind, a quiet voice keeps whispering, "This is enough. Don't risk it. Stay safe." And here's the terrifying part. That voice doesn't sound like fear. It sounds like wisdom. Today we are going to expose that voice for exactly what it is. There's a psychological mechanism buried inside every human brain called your brain, the most complex machine ever created, has one primary job. Not to make you rich, not to make you successful, not even to make you happy. Its job is to keep you alive. And to do that, it is wired to protect the familiar. Neuroscientists call this status quo bias, the brain's tendency to treat the current situation as the safest option, regardless of whether it actually is. Here's how it shows up in real life. Meet Daniel. Daniel was 31 years old, working a marketing job he quietly despised. The salary was decent, the commute was predictable. His co-workers were harmless. Nothing was wrong, technically, but nothing was right either. Every Sunday evening, Daniel felt a weight settle over him, a dull creeping dread. And still, every Monday morning he drove the same route, sat at the same desk and told himself the same thing. At least it's stable. What Daniel didn't understand was this. His brain had classified his discomfort as safer than the unknown. His mediocrity wasn't a lack of ambition. It was neurology. The brain releases a small dose of dopamine every time a routine is completed. That's your brain rewarding you for surviving, not thriving, just surviving. And when you repeat that pattern long enough, average starts to feel like achievement. The first step to escaping it isn't motivation. It isn't a vision board. It's awareness, knowing that your own mind is the architect of your ceiling. Here's a truth that almost no one wants to hear. The reason most people never change their financial reality isn't a lack of information. It's a conflict of identity. Psychologist Dr. Carol Dweck spent decades studying why some people push through failure while others collapse at the first sign of difficulty. Her conclusion was staggering. In its simplicity, people don't act outside the story they believe about themselves. Think about that for a moment. If somewhere in your life, perhaps in childhood, perhaps through repeated failure, you absorb the belief that wealth is for other people, or I'm not the type who wins, then every time an opportunity arrives, your brain doesn't evaluate it. It filters it. It bends the evidence to match the identity. Now let me tell you about a woman named Priya. Priya grew up watching her parents clip coupons and argue about electricity bills. She was brilliant. She won a regional science competition at 16. Her teachers called her exceptional. But the story in Priya's house was always the same. We are not lucky people. We work hard and we scrape by. By the time Priya was 28, she had a degree, a decent job, and an unshakable belief that financial comfort was a reward meant for people born into different circumstances. When her friend invited her to start a small business together, Priya said no. When she received a job offer at double her salary, she turned it down, claiming the commute was too long. She wasn't lying to her friend. She was lying to herself. Her identity had become her prison. And the lock, it was made of borrowed beliefs she never once questioned. The psychology of staying average is almost always rooted in this, an unexamined story running silently beneath every decision. Before you change your bank account, you have to change the character you believe yourself to be. Because the mind will always find a way to confirm what it already believes. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because it's not just your internal story holding you back. There is an invisible social force at work in your life, one that operates without your permission and shapes your behavior every single day. Psychologists call it social norming. Simply put, human beings unconsciously adopt the behaviors, beliefs, and ambitions of the people closest to them. We don't copy each other out of weakness. We do it because for thousands of years, belonging to the tribe was survival. To think differently from the group was dangerous. To earn more than your peers was threatening. To want more than your environment offered was, historically, a form of social exile. That ancient wiring still runs in modern humans. And it is ruthlessly efficient at keeping people exactly where they are. Consider the story of Howard Schultz, the man who transformed a small Seattle coffee company into a global brand. Schultz grew up in poverty, in a Brooklyn housing project. His father broke his ankle on the job, lost his work, and the family spiraled. No sick pay, no compensation, nothing. As a child, Schultz absorbed a world where people like him didn't build empires, they endured. When Schultz first traveled to Milan and witnessed the Italian coffee culture, the warmth, the ritual, the community, he had a vision so clear it almost frightened him. He returned to Seattle and pitched the idea of creating that experience in America. His investors said no. All 242 of them. His colleagues thought he'd lost perspective. The average people around him saw risk. Howard Schultz saw possibility. The difference wasn't intelligence. It wasn't luck. It was his willingness to step outside the social gravity of his environment. The people around you are not your enemies, but their ceiling can become yours if you never notice it's happening. The question isn't whether the people in your life are good people. The question is, what are their limits teaching you about your own? Here's the most powerful and most disturbing insight in all of wealth psychology. Staying average is not a passive state. It is an active choice made unconsciously, every single day in 1,000 tiny decisions. The decision not to read the book, the decision not to send the email, the decision to watch one more hour of television instead of building one more hour of skill. Individually, each of those choices feels meaningless, but collectively, they construct your entire future. The psychologist Abraham Maslow once said, something that cuts to the bone. In any given moment, a person has a choice: step forward into growth or step back into safety. The gravity of safety is powerful. It is relentless. It never sleeps. And the terrifying truth is this: most people never consciously decide to be average. They simply never decide to be otherwise. They drift, day by day, year by year, letting comfort make the choices that ambition should be making. And one morning, maybe at 40, maybe at 55, they look up and realize the life they are living is not the one they imagined. Not because the world stole it, but because they handed it over, one small surrender at a time. That is the psychology behind staying average. Not failure, not tragedy, just the slow, quiet accumulation of comfortable choices. So where does that leave you? Right here, in this moment, with something most people never get. You now understand the homeostatic trap. You understand identity lock. You understand the social gravity pulling at your ambitions. And awareness, real, honest awareness, is where every transformation in human history has started. Not with a perfect plan, not with the ideal moment, not with someone else's permission. It starts with a single quiet decision to stop letting the unconscious run the show. You don't have to blow up your entire life tomorrow, but you do have to start noticing the moments when comfort is posing as wisdom. When the familiar feels safe but is slowly making you smaller. When the voice inside says not yet, and you choose to answer why not now. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not a gap of resources. It is a gap of psychology. And psychology, unlike circumstance, unlike luck, unlike timing, is something you can actually change. The average life isn't a sentence. It's just a habit. And habits can always be broken.